Awesome. So let's kick this off. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Just to repeat, this is Maximizing ACE Credit with Perkins V funding for the Autodesk Certified User program. We are excited to have you here. We are going to break this up into a couple of sections. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the program as it stands right now, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Vanessa, and she's going to drive you through ACE Credit and the Perkins V funding portion of it, and then we'll come back around for a summary and open up for questions. Awesome. Um, this is brought to you by the Autodesk Certified User and our colleagues at Autodesk. Are very excited about this. We're excited to share it with them. And overall, just excited to be here with y'all today. So, as a reminder, that's who we are. Let's talk a little bit about job data first. Before we get into what Autodesk Certified User is, let's talk about why Autodesk Certified User exists. There is a skills gap between the skills needed in industry and people that are coming out of the education space. As you can see, there's jobs very high in demand all over the United States for skills requiring the Autodesk software. These are in manufacturing, engineering, architecture, uh, design, animation, all sorts of stuff. But they are very highly in demand across the United States. And so we're really excited to be able to meet in the middle there to try to bridge the gap between education and the workforce by offering the Autodesk Certified User program. These are great jobs. These jobs are generally high in demand. As you can see there, there's a large number of openings in the industry for them right now. You know, your median salary is around 80K, so these are pretty well-paying jobs. And we find ourselves in a situation where we can provide an opportunity for students to gain skills that can help them get employment in the workplace and set them on the path to a successful career. And that is why Autodesk Certified User is here. And that's probably a lot of the reason why we have some of the advantages to these programs that really help us along. But first, let me walk you through what the program is, and we'll get into those advantages in a little bit. Um, Autodesk Certified User is software, it's computer assisted design, more commonly known as CAD, and it's used abundantly in engineering, manufacturing, architecture, construction. You can see over here we have kind of four of our certifications that focus on these areas and some of the titles that lead uh, that our certifications can help people lead a career into. They also do have Autodesk 3ds Max and Maya, which focus more on the entertainment industry, are more around animation and design and video game development. And those are the six exams that make up Autodesk Certified User. These are entry-level certifications focused on engineering, construction, architecture, manufacturing, and entertainment, as we just said. They're created by Certiport in partnership with Autodesk, which is the most widely used CAD software in the country and across the world. We're not just talking the United States, but we are talking globally. They're valued by hiring managers to help launch careers. We often refer to the fields that I previously listed as the design and make fields because these are fields where we can create, computer animated versions of what will be manifested into tangible, hard, produced assets that are used across these industries. These exams are live in the application for the most part, meaning you are engaged in using the software during the testing of these exams. You will be inside Autodesk. You have to know where everything is. You have to have a familiarity with the software, be very well trained on it, because you only do have 50 minutes to pass these exams. And as all things at Certiport, we do offer a full pathway solution that is the certification and exams that can be bundled with practice tests, learning curriculum, and everything there essentially to help your learners advance their careers. These are available exclusively through Certiport. We do bundle them and provide discounts for purchasing larger bundles. If you want to contact a Certiport representative to talk more about Autodesk Certified User, you can go to certiport.com/buy and fill out the form and someone will reach out to you. Awesome. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Vanessa because she's the real brains of this webinar and the one that we all came here to see. She's going to talk to us about ACE credit recommendations and Perkins 5. So Vanessa, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Kenneth. For everybody on this webinar, I don't know about you, but I hate it when someone tries to honeypot me with all these awesome value propositions. I just got to have it. But how many of those spiels end in a way to pay for it? I have one of the best jobs at Certiport because it's kind of like a mixture between research and Oprah. I get to make sure that the certifications we represent are on state lists that open up funding for schools, incentives. So not just the funding to pay for the certification, but in some states you get a hefty bonus when students get certified. And I also work really hard with our team to make sure that we have a fantastic return on investment for the schools and the candidates. We don't think it's enough that the candidate gets certified and has opportunities to get towards all these jobs that Kenneth just highlighted. We want our certifications to change lives and to pay dividends. So I'm going to pick up where Kenneth left off on benefits, and then later I'll talk about funding. Kenneth just laid out the concrete labor market demand for Autodesk certifications in key industries across the board, from architecture and engineering, 3D rendering, design, and mechanicals, to manufacturing, machining, and inventing of all sorts. The statistics and maps he showed you are from Lightcast, which is the industry standard labor market database used by many of our state Department of Workforce and Educations. Lightcast is telling us that there are 500,000 jobs just last year in the United States requiring Autodesk certifications, but this is a software that transcends the entire globe. If you consider two students that take the same CAD and drafting course, and one gets certified and the other doesn't, the one who got the certification when compared is going to get the job. I dare you to find me a single drafting firm in the world who has not heard of Autodesk or AutoCAD or the similar technologies and wouldn't prioritize that candidate over the other, all else the same. So beyond the recognition that we have in the job market, we also have recognition from institutions like the American Council of Education. And we're going to talk about that now. So the American Council of Education, next slide, has been around for a good amount of time, over 100 years, and it's a coordinating body for U.S. higher education institutions. As you can see here, there are thousands of college and university presidents and other related associations. It has a few different functions, but one of them may be policy advocacy, research, so on and so forth, to help all of those colleges and their leadership make the right choices on advancing education. One of the functions that they do is ACE learning evaluations for higher education. In this segment, they recommend credit weights for non-traditional learning. And the way this would work is that a college or institution that abides or respects or follows ACE credit recommendations would take into consideration the ACE weight that is recommended for a given certification. So we're really proud that our certifications pass muster. And on the next slide, you're going to see exactly how much college credit is recommended for each of these certifications. And again, this is something that a college or university would consider. This, respected consortium leader has evaluated the certifications, not just on the content, but on the security of the certification, all of the methodology and psychometric analysis that we do on the back end. And they've said this is worth the equivalent of 1, 2, or 3 college credits. So if there were a university in your state who respects and follows these credit recommendations, then we pulled a few samples. For example, in Illinois, where if you're going to a community college, credit is worth about $300 or so, then getting a 3 credit certification could yield a value of savings of around $984. So when we talk about this return on investment, we've covered tangible employment outcomes, and now we're also looking at potential savings on tuition, materials, supplies, time, and more. If for some reason we got this far and you're still looking at any other certifications for your architecture and engineering or manufacturing courses, my professional advice is to check if they meet the same standard of ACE recommendations and also being in demand in the job market. So next, I promised I'd talk about funding. You all may know that every state in the US handles education and funding slightly differently. Today, I promised Kenneth I wouldn't launch into what he dubbed a snooze fest and what I call an alphabetical rendition of every state's education policy, but he did give me permission to give a high-level overview and then instruct you how to find more about your particular state. So today we're going to focus on Perkins V funding, which is one of a few different federal funding, and there's probably state fundings as well to promote career and technical education. I reckon a few of you have heard about Perkins V because it's one of the main ways career and technical education in secondary and post-secondary is funded in the US. Furthermore, our government relations team expects that career and technical education funding is going to strengthen, and real-world outcomes like certification are going to be ever more central than before. So let's dive into how industry recognized credentials are an important part of CTE policy. What you see here is the website. I just did a snapshot. I'm not, giving you nonsense from the world of Vanessa. The section that we've highlighted over here is the fact that the goal of Perkins V legislation, which is billions of dollars that go out to states, usually matching funds to promote career and technical education, is that they're expecting it to have an outcome of a credential of value. So what is a credential of value? Every state interprets this slightly differently. The actual language of the text is that it has to be an industry recognized credential, a certificate, or an associate degree. Most states take that definition of industry recognized credential, and they have varying degrees of rigorous processes which evaluate the credential, for example, by having it go to an employer body, workforce boards, looking at that labor market data from Lightcast, for example, and seeing if this is actually going to make a difference in the candidate's life if they were to obtain this certification. And most states publish lists of the certifications that they feel pass muster. Drumroll, please. So we're going to send out this PowerPoint at the end, I believe. And as you can see here, we have most of the states. We may even have a territory or two in here. Those links go to the state list. So again, I'm not allowed to talk about it all in depth here, but you can find your state, find the list, and I can tell you that Autodesk Certified User is on those, mostly because it's my job to get them there. But there is nary a doubt in any of these states' minds that Autodesk Certified User represents a body of certifications that are relevant and in demand to the market in every single one of these US states. So what does that mean? It's on the certification list. This means a few things. First of all, depending on the state you're in, it means that it's eligible for using Perkins V funding. How, if you're a teacher, that you will access that, again, is very state and even locality contingent, but for many of you that may involve speaking with your CT administrator. There might be regional administrators, folks that are in somewhere a chain to the funding for Perkins V. You are often allowed to use the Perkins V funding because it is in that list of certifications. Now, in exchange for the federal government providing this funding, they often ask states to show that the credential of value was actually attained. And so many states report on the number of students that are getting certified. Here's a sample of a report, and it's probably small on your computer, but I will tell you that the very last series of bars on this graph, this is from Florida, is the Florida government reporting to Perkins how many students in high school attained recognized post-secondary credentials. And certifications are recognized credentials, depending on how the state defines that, in most cases. So there are other reasons why you might certify, in addition to it being funding, in addition to it being part of your accountability and compliance. Accountability may be measured outside of Perkins. In states like Texas, certification is another factor that goes into school performance scores and can impact your funding and also the viability of your school programming for stakeholders like the community. Some other states like Wisconsin or Florida offer incentive funds for every student that's certified, and those funds may go back to the school programming, they may go to the teacher sometimes, which can be an additional bonus. If your state does not offer funding, it is something that states are starting to pick up and is very attractive. If you feel like your state might have an appetite for it, I really encourage you to speak up about it, or you can get in contact with us and we can help you with examples to nudge your state in a direction that would pay off for you all. Um, in some states like Illinois, a certification is a college and career readiness indicator. So something that signals that the student is ready to graduate. These are often required, any number of college and career readiness indicators. In states like Alabama or Pennsylvania, it can be considered a graduation readiness alternative. So equivalent to a GRE, an SAT, or other graduation signifier. You may be able to use this not just for college credit, as we've mentioned in ACE, but many colleges have articulation agreements for our certifications. And finally, in states like Rhode Island, sometimes you have the option to skip a required course if you can pass a certification exam that goes along with it. So this is just an example of lots of juicy reasons that if you're not aware of if any of these exist in your state, you may look into it because it can be yet another compelling reason. In addition to the labor market demand, the benefit for college recommendations, so on and so forth, for certification.
Well, you really know what you're talking about here, and it's very impressive. Uh, what are some strategies you think, like depending on how different states manage Perkins 5 funding, are there some high-level strategies or thoughts that you would suggest teachers follow if they were really trying to ensure this Perkins 5 funding was flowing down as a result of their program?
We often see a lot of certification fanatics, and which makes us really excited because we feel like we're making a difference. And so Certiport is so proud of the teachers that are sometimes the first in their state or even in their district to kick off certification. And these early adopters tend to serve as these awesome cases for success and can be some of the most compelling advocates for moving policy in a direction that not only benefits all of their early adoption, but helps other schools catch the bug. And again, this is not just about the schools catching the bug and everybody, being in a state of community about it, but these are real world outcomes. As I mentioned at the beginning, a student with an Autodesk certified, user credential has proven that the course they took is at the standard of the employer that's accepting them. Otherwise, the employer isn't really sure what you did in that course. And with varying, education programs across schools and districts, et cetera, it can really help cut through any doubt about the bearer's competencies. So, so I know I'm just repeating myself with all these value propositions, but if you think that you may be one of those teachers, um, I think it's worthwhile to get in touch with your administrators to talk about what you've seen, or if you want to start a program, reach out to Certiport and let's figure out a way to kick off something that we all can feel really good about, and to share the message of how important this is. In about February is when most districts start their budgeting processes, when the state starts to think about their budgets. So this is right about the time to reflect on successes that you have had if you're already doing certification, or to start kicking off programs, as the semester is ending or a new one is starting, with a mind to, if this is going to be something that's really worthwhile, how can it be given an even larger platform to make a difference?
Awesome. We're going to open up for questions here in a minute, but I want to ask you one more thing, and I apologize we didn't prepare about this component, but can you explain a little bit about how rigorous is the process to get a credential on one of these state funding lists in the various states? Like, what kind of hoops have to be jumped through? Um, is there validation in having to jump through all these hoops? Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a tremendous love-hate relationship with this process because on one level, it's our job to help jump through those hoops. And so the higher the hoops get, I gotta, work out a bit. We gotta jump really high here. And Certiport is always striving to meet and to exceed the bar that states set for our certifications. So the whole company is right in stride with me as we're working to exceed those standards. And standards get harder because state education departments, they care. And I mean, as I say this, I realize I'm preaching to the choir because there's a lot of teachers and administrators here who are like, there they go, raising the bar. And I have so much paperwork to do as a result. So we can commiserate on that front. But I've noticed over time that states at first, they get the legislation from Perkins. They say, okay, we need a credential, do your own. Over time, the first list maybe had like everything and the whole kitchen sink in there. And now states are being very considerate about what is actually demanded in the job market. So I touched upon this before, but some states will have workforce councils. So that may include some business, some policy specialists, workforce board leadership. The application process may require letters of endorsement and recommendation from businesses, workforce boards, unions, trade organizations. I mean, it's a very extensive process. Often they're looking for articulation or college preparedness. um, it's hard to think about what they might not be asking for these days. In fact, sometimes we're asked for how many students are getting this, the labor market data, are these skills being demanded in the local area? Um, we have access to all that information at Certiport if ever you are interested in getting something listed that is not there. Again, Autodesk should be there, but if there's another topic, do reach out because it's our job to help you all have access to these certifications and to all the benefits that come along with it.
We have a question. It looks like Will has his hand raised. Are you okay if I allow him to ask a question?
Heck yeah, I will.
All right. Hey, Will, go ahead. You will just have to unmute yourself, but you can be heard. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I think I accidentally raised my hand. However, I do have a question.
Oh.
Um, for the list of college credits there with the various programs, are those, if I were to take multiple exams and get past them all, or a student would they get credit for different courses, or once you've reached a certain amount, is it kind of like end, or does that depend on the college or university that's accepting them?
It does
I,
depend on it does
yeah,
depend on
go
the
ahead.
college or university. Um, I know when I was going to college, I had like some AP credits, and it's very similar to that. When you go to your college counselor's office, the college may have a cap on whatever you can use technically. So I guess if you get 20, maybe you're violating that cap. All of these usually articulate to a specific course, like they wouldn't all articulate to the same course because they cover very different or mostly different fields. So you might, if you took all the Autodesk certifications, you might get out of a video game design course, an architectural drafting course, mechanical drafting. It would definitely vary what the credit was attributed to. And it's up to the college, first of all, if they recognize the recommendations, and second of all, if there's a cap on how many you're allowed to cash in on.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Please do feel free to raise your hand. We'll go ahead and unmute you and let you ask the question live if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll continue on to our summary and wrap it up. All right. Well, I gave you all a chance. Don't hold it against me. Just to kind of summarize what we talked about here, we did go over these jobs are very much in demand in the workplace. Autodesk is the leader in their industries. They are, you know, by far one of the most in demanded across manufacturing, construction, and some of these other fields. Our certifications and learning products are aligned to these curriculums to help you really kind of ensure you are passing these certification exams. The ACE credit recommendations can save you time and money. Um, it's always a plus, especially as a college student who's, often short on cash and time. Um, the Perkins V often funds at these industry recognized credentials. That's a real validation and kind of the way I look at it in some aspects, kind of a stamp of approval on the various programs that do qualify for funding through these state funding lists. Just going through the rigorous process and having to be accepted is in and of itself kind of a mark of approval, sort of say. Um, and these certifications do often check a lot of the compliance boxes depending on the different state, requirements, but for Perkins funding, for graduation, and for other things. So to reiterate, if you'd like to speak to a Certiport representative, please just visit certiport.com/buy. There'll be a form there you can fill out, and we'll have someone reach out to you over the following day or two. And one last chance to raise your hand and ask any questions before we wrap up. Anyone else have any questions? Or were we just that good? I love it. Thank you all very much for coming. It's been great, and I do find this super interesting. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time on this. I know this is outside of what you do on a regular for your regular job hours. So I really do appreciate you going above and beyond and joining us so you can explain some of this. We are going to send this out along with the slides and a recording of this webinar to everyone that registered. If you do have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to Certiport and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much and have a great day.